Hello, welcome to lesson number 1 of Arduino Fundamentals. In this very first lesson of the tutorial series, we'll show you some of the key basic insights into C++ programming and how it applies to Arduino. We'll also explain how the code interacts with the board itself and some of the sensors that we'll be using in this tutorial series. So in particular, we'll cover the setup and loop function for Arduino. We'll explain what the serial monitor is and how to output variables. We'll also end with some basic arithmetics such as addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. And finally, we'll do our very first project, a baseline project that toggles an LED on and off with the Arduino board. So hopefully it'll be very interesting, and let's get started right away. Now, in order to start learning programming for Arduino, we do need something called an IDE. It is typically more common to work with an IDE called the Arduino IDE that's made by Arduino themselves. However, for the purpose of these tutorials, we found a really convenient online tool called Walkwe. This online IDE lets you not only write code, but also simulate how the code interacts with the hardware, the Arduino board, and various sensors in real time. So it has a coding interface and also a built-in simulator. It is really convenient, and I'll show you how to register for this website in a second. So what you want to do right now is head over to walkwe.com, that's WOKWI.com, and you'll find yourself in a page that looks like this. So go to the top right corner and register for an account. You can do so with a Google account or your GitHub or simply an email address. I already have an account, so I'll simply log in with my GitHub account here. Once you have your account information set up, you'll still find yourself on the same page. However, if you look at the top right corner, you'll find your account information by clicking on your icon. And then what you want to do is head over to My Projects. If this is your first time looking at this page, then it's probably empty, just like mine. What you want to do to start your very first Arduino project is to click on the New Project button and then select your Arduino hardware. For this tutorial, we'll be working with the Arduino Uno board. This is a medium-sized Arduino board and it is a very good choice for beginners. It is a very excellent and easy board to work with. So yeah, let's get started at explaining the code. Now, I would like to ask everyone to stop and take a moment to study the current page layout. If you shift your attention to the left side, you'll notice that there are two blocks of code written out for you. One of them is called setup and the other is called loop. Both of them are functions that serve as the backbone to your Arduino programming projects. And they're very important in terms of getting your hardware to work with the software and to get it to interact with various sensors. So we'll explain what they are in just a second, but I just wanted to let you know that on this side, this is your coding interface, and everything you do in terms of code writing will be done here. If you can shift your attention to the right side now, you'll find yourself looking at the Arduino Uno board. This is the same Uno board that we just talked about a little while ago. And here, this is your simulator. You'll be able to add in various sensors and connect them to this Uno board and see how they interact when the code runs. It'll be really interesting and they'll be very intuitive to understand once we have a project going, so let's get started on that. So yeah, when you start writing code for an Arduino board, you'll notice that there are these two very important functions, setup and loop. These functions play very different roles in your program. So the setup function is only called once when your Arduino board starts up. It is like the initial setup or configuration phase of your program or computer. In this function, you typically initialize any settings or variables that you'll need for your program to run correctly. For example, you might set the pin modes for digital or analog input and output, define the serial communication settings, or initialize any libraries that you plan to use. You may not understand what these are, but we'll talk about them and cover them throughout the duration of these tutorials, so don't worry. So yeah, I figured the best way to get started is to just do an example. And we'll do something that everyone or most people will do when they first start to learn Arduino, and that's to just blink an LED. What you want to do is head over to this plus icon. Here you'll be able to add in an LED. This is a list of sensors that you can add to your simulator, and for now we'll only use this LED. Now, if you're familiar with basic circuits, you'll know that you need to connect the shorter leg of the LED to the negative end and the longer leg to the positive end. So for the negative end, we'll connect to the ground, and for the positive end, we'll connect to pin 13, which is one of the pins on the Arduino board that you can use as an output or input. So yeah, now that we have our LED set up, we just want to tell the Arduino board that we'll be using pin 13 as an output to the LED, and it will be responsible for turning the LED on and off. So to do that, we'll first need to set up a global integer variable for the pin. We'll call it pin underline LED equals 13. And this just serves as an alias so that we don't have to keep using the number 13 in our code. We'll just simply call it pin LED for better readability. And 13, as you know, is an integer. So when we name the variable, we have to give it a type, and the type currently is an integer. We'll just use int. And don't forget the semicolon at the end. So we want to change the pin mode of pin 13 to output, and we only need to do it once because it will stay in that mode until we change it later on. So what we want to do is go to setup function and write pin mode. And in pin mode, you'll add two input variables. The first one being your pin number, and in here we can just type pin LED, as we already defined what pin LED is, which is the number 13. As in pin 13. And in the second input, we want to write output, as this is the pin mode that we want to set it to. And don't forget the semicolon again. This sufficiently tells the Arduino board that we'll be using pin 13 as an output, and it will be providing voltage to the LED. Now that we have all of our setup ready, we want to head over to the loop function. And this is where the main part of our code resides. So the loop function runs in a continuous loop, executing the instructions you write inside it over and over again. This is where you put the code that you want your Arduino to repeat continuously and indefinitely, but of course until you put a stop to it. So using the same example, you can turn an LED on and off here in the loop function. But before that, we want to cover the two functions called digital write and digital read. We won't be using digital read for this project, however it will be very intuitive and easy to understand once I explain what digital write does. For digital write, we'll still need to use our pin number as the first input, so we'll write pin LED for pin 13. And in the second input, we can write either a high or a low. If we write high, then we'll tell the Arduino board to turn the LED on. If we write low, then we'll tell the Arduino board to turn LED off. So we can give that a try. So let's get rid of digital read for now. And then we can run the simulator with this green button over here. So as you can see, the LED turns on. And if I remove high and then add low, and then run the simulator again, we can see that the LED stays off. Digital reads function in a similar way. However, we'll only need to provide it with one input variable, which is our pin number, in this case 13. Now digital read will provide us with all the information from the sensor or the current component that's connected to pin 13. However, since we're using an LED and it won't give us any information, there's no point in doing digital read, so we'll get rid of it for now. And we'll explain and show you examples of that once we start interacting with actual sensors. For example, in the second lesson, we'll do a more comprehensive version of the LED toggling project. In there, we'll explain the functionalities and provide more background on the digital write, digital read, and pin mode functions, and explain them in greater detail. So for now, just understand the characteristics of the setup and loop functions, and that's the main thing we're trying to show in the first lesson. So let's get back to our main topic, which is turning the LED on and off. We already know how to do it individually. We can turn it on and then off, but how do we do it in a loop and indefinitely? Well, we can just simply add another line of digital write in our loop function, and this time set the write mode to low. And doing so, we'll turn the LED high to low, and then when the loop repeats itself, we'll go back to high mode. So let's see how this works. We can rerun the simulation with this button, and you'll see that the LED stays on. So why is that? Logically, the LED should be toggling on and off, right? Well, it is doing that. It is just doing that really fast, and we can't tell the difference with our human eyes. So how do we tell the difference more clearly? we need to add in a time delay between the two digital writes. So we'll add in a time delay here, and then a second one after the second digital write. So we'll say delay parentheses, and send the parentheses will add in the input of 1000. Here 1000 is in milliseconds. So what we actually mean by this line is adding a delay of 1000 milliseconds between each digital write. So when we rerun this code, we'll see that the LED toggles and we can see the difference. And there we go. That's our project, and we accomplished what we wanted to achieve in the beginning. So that was just a taste of what the Arduino board offers, and you can do so much more with it. So let me show you some other bits and pieces that you need to get started with Arduino programming. Similar to other programming languages, you can output variables and various other data types using the print line function with the serial port. So we want to do the setup for serial first. So we'll write serial dot begin and add in the baud rate. You won't need to worry about what this number means at the moment, but just simply type serial.begin parentheses 9600, and then this will tell your Arduino board that now you're ready to begin printing. And then following that, we'll write serial.print line. Print line. So yeah, and then you can type in whatever you wanted to print. For example, if I want to print the number 13, we'll put 13 inside the parentheses and then add in my semicolon. And this is done in the setup function, so it will only be run once. So if I click on the simulation button, see the output here is 13. I can also print a sentence. So if I do quotation marks, hello world, hello world, and click on the run button again, we'll see the serial terminal prints hello world. Hopefully that was easy to understand. Now let's add in a little arithmetic on top of that. Similar to other programming languages, you can name a new variable, let's call it x, and then do some simple arithmetic with it. So let's say x equals 1 plus 1, and then change the output here, the thing we want to output, to x. And let's run the simulation again. We can see the output is 2. So 1 plus 1 equals 2. And then we can also do subtraction. So 1 minus 1 will get the output 0. Let's try something. For example, 1 multiplied by 5. And then run the simulation again. We get 5. And then let's do 10. We use a slash for division. So 10 divided by 5 is 2. Very simple, very easy to understand. So lastly, if we want to print x over and over again in our serial terminal, how can we do that? Well, you might be thinking we can just move serial print line to the loop function, right? Similar to how we did the LED toggling function. Well, that's not the case. As you can see, we see an error. Well, the reason for that is because int x is the local variable to the void setup function. That means x cannot be used anywhere else outside of the setup function. So in order to access the value of x in the loop function, we have to move x to outside of the setup function. And that way x becomes a global variable, like our pin mode variable before. So if we run the code now, then we will see that the terminal prints 2 over and over again. Interesting, isn't it? I hope that was a very rewarding first lesson for everyone, and thank you so much for watching the tutorial series on Arduino fundamentals. There are 2 practice problems made in relation to this tutorial's material, and please attempt them before watching the second lesson, and we'll see you there. Thank you so much.